Lately, I've been doing a lot of power carving, mostly adding texture to some of the pieces I create. But today I'm going to switch it up. You see, I've always wanted a bread bowl, so I'm going to show you how I completely carved a bread bowl. No lathe required, no special skills, just a few of my Saburrtooth burrs. I have a ton of scrap wood sitting around my shop, so I decided to dig through it and find the perfect piece for this bowl. And I actually ended up finding two, a piece of mahogany and a piece of white oak. And the first step was to glue these two pieces together. Both pieces were really flat, so that combined with a ton of glue, I was able to get a nice, clean, strong joint. With these two pieces together, it was approximately 4 inches thick and heavy. Mahogany is super dense hardwood. Next step was to draw or lay out my pattern. I wanted mine to have handles on the ends and the sides to taper, so I made some rough measurements and markings on the board, and in hindsight I could have made the white oak a little bit shorter than the mahogany to save myself some carving time on the handles down the road. But again, this is my first time carving something 3D. Then I got set up outside my messy shop with my portable workbench to help keep some of the sawdust out of it. And then it was time to start carving. I started with my Saburrtooth 4-inch donut wheel round face. It's an extra coarse grit, and it's also orange on my 4-inch angle grinder. I used this to blend the sides and then carve down the handles. I would recommend, which I didn't do, is to switch to a finer grit when you're starting to get close to your desired lines. That way you don't accidentally take off too much material and leave a gouge mark. I learned this the hard way and made some of my sidewalls a little thinner than I would have liked. I also recommend going back and adding new lines if they get carved out or you just need another look from a different angle to help you keep on track with your shaping. Since this was my first 3D piece, it was a little hard to imagine everything until I really got to that step. And then just keep carving. I want to give a shout out and thanks to my friends over at Saburrtooth Power Carving Tools for sponsoring this video. I'm having a ton of fun learning more and more about power carving with each project. So thanks again, Saburrtooth. Now it's time to hollow out the center, and I'm still using that same carving desk. Next, I used a 1-inch circle burr in coarse grit with my Makita die grinder to help shape the inside of the bowl. This worked, but on such a big bowl, I think I could have gotten away with just staying with the discs. And again, I recommend having a finer grit burr or disc available to help smooth out some of the lines. This will definitely help save some sanding time down the road. A little more shaping, and then it was time for sanding. But up first was to clean up all of this mess. I cannot believe how much sawdust that this power carving creates. So glad I decided to carve this outside and not inside my shop. Now it was time for sanding. I used my random orbital sander and sanded for what felt like forever. Dang, my mahogany is hard. I used 60 grit, 120 grit, and then 220 grit. And after sanding, I still had some divots or carving mistakes, but I think almost every bread bowl I've ever seen in the past wasn't perfect. So I decided that this would work. But to cover up some of the divots and give this piece a little more character and really showcase the two-tone look, I decided to add a hammered effect on the outside of the mahogany portion. To do this, I used a 1/4-inch circle bit in coarse grit with my Ryobi rotary tool. I started at the line or the intersection where the mahogany and the white oak meet, and then proceeded to work my way around. Making the divots and dimples, I recommend coming in at it from different angles to give the cuts a different look in the light. And I did a little more sanding and it was time for finish. Well, first I actually wiped the bowl down with some water to pop the grain. It just raises the grain a little bit, and then you can sand that down so that doesn't happen later. And then I wiped it down with some mineral spirits to make sure all the dust was off of it. And then I decided to use a finish that I had on hand, some Danish oil. It is food safe once it's cured and leaves a nice matte finish that I like. Plus it was super easy to apply. Simply wipe it on, let it sit, wipe off, apply again, let it sit, and then wipe off any excess, and you're done. I'm super happy with how my first power carve bowl turned out. I learned a lot, especially to be patient in the carving process, and that it's better to take off not enough at first than too much. I hope you found this tutorial helpful, and if you did, please leave a comment below and be sure to hit that like button. And if you carve a bread bowl for yourself, I'd love to see it, so please tag me or use the hashtag #BuildingAwesome. Thanks for following my journey, happy building, stay safe, and have an awesome day.